Wait, wasn't I going to wish for Theta to let me go?
Rain, what do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
The Pinky and the Brain. Yes, Pinky and the Brain.
Hey everybody, Sol here. I have only one rule here. If it's animated, I'll comment on it. And I've taken over the world before. No, seriously, I have. Or, well, it wasn't me necessarily. I should say it was the uncontrollable, shattered, empty shell of my former self, completely absorbed by evil powers, killed everyone on Earth, and took over. It was only through my selfless act of destroying her when she let her guard down and turning back time did everyone come back to life. I saved the fucking world, guys, but apparently that makes me a bad guy, according to Theta. So fuck it. In memoriam of my megalomaniacal moment of my marred and meager matter, and keeping in the month with Ani-May-Niacs, we're gonna take a look at Pinky and the Brain. Pinky and the Brain is a 2D animated series produced by Warner Bros. Television Animation and Amblin Television, and was the very first animated series to be broadcast in Dolby Digital Surround Sound. The series is a spin-off of 1993's Ani-May-Niacs, and it aired on the WB in 1995, with a total of 4 seasons and 65 episodes. The show later spun off again into a new series called Pinky Elmira and the Brain, where it added the character of Elmira Duff from Tiny Toon Adventures to the cast. Alright then, the moon is out, the time is right, and though I have yet to be unlocked from my own cage, that won't stop me from reviewing Pinky and the Brain. Oh hey look, another series that explains the entire premise in the theme song! That sure makes my job easy. This script practically writes itself. I can just sit on my fat ass and eat chicken strips all night. So, without further ado, 2 genetically altered lab mice by the name of Pinky and the Brain live in a cage in Acme Labs. The Brain plots every night to take over the world with an assortment of schemes and shenanigans, while Pinky is his dim-witted but faithful tag-along who helps Brain achieve his goals. Or not. Yep, as far as premises go, it's about as simple as you can get. Far be it for me to criticize simplicity, I have absolutely no issue with that. I can see that the creators did everything they possibly could to keep this concept from going stale, such as with clever book or movie parodies and changing of time periods, but the basic formula unfortunately lacks any sort of perceptible spark, making it a show that becomes terribly dull to watch in rapid succession. Here, I'll show you how to make a spark. There, you see? It's easy. To get a better understanding of the character, I need to think like a mouse, talk like a mouse, be a mouse. There we go. Now I am one with the mice. Bow down to me as your ruler. I think I might have messed this one up. So for starters, we have the Brain, a genetically altered, hyper-intelligent lab mouse who plots every night by coming up with convoluted and crazy plans to, what else, take over the world.
Of course!
Sorry, I know it's a super old meme and I stole it from Channel also, but come on! The lure was too great for me, how could I resist? I'm only one man! The Brain, for those who may not be aware, isn't comparable to the likes of characters like Zim from Invader Zim or Voltar from League of Super Evil, in that the Brain strives to conquer the world to make it a better place, with varying levels of success. He doesn't seem to think that humans are very good at running the world, and in all honesty, we really aren't, and he feels that he could do a much better job at running the world with his intellect. And in that regard, I think the Brain comes off as kind of a sad character. Not cry sad, but sympathetic sad. He tries really hard to distinguish himself from the other megalomaniacal ones in his life because he genuinely believes that what he's doing is right. It's just that his short stature and the fact that he's, a mouse, makes it impossible for him to succeed. The brain is sarcastic and deadpan, not in a spleen-splittingly hilarious way like Yakko Warner, but more in a contemplative, quieter fashion that makes him more interesting as a character, in that he never really seems happy with his life. It actually makes you want to see him succeed in his schemes, despite him technically being an enemy of humanity, and that's a pretty big accomplishment, all things considered. While the brain isn't exactly high on my list of beloved characters, he has burrowed into a special niche, that's for sure. Next is Pinky, another genetically altered lab mouse, but with a significantly lower intellect than the brain. Pinky generally takes a more positive outlook on life, and has no plans of his own to take over the world, but will still help Brain with his plots and ploys as much as he can, despite his innate ability to fuck everything up at regular intervals. Pinky has oodles of charm and likability, and really helps to contribute to the comedic duo he and the Brain have. Sure, he's usually on the receiving end of the physical abuse and puts up with a lot of shit from Brain, yet it's not as unsettling as something like Nathan and Mimsy from South Park.
Shut up, Mimsy!
Even though Pinky is more often than not the reason the brain fails to conquer the Earth as planned, he never manages to get on your nerves, since he dishes out the random humor in just such a way that makes him never outstay his welcome. He's also important to the brain, not just as a punching bag, but sometimes being the voice of reason, and an important source of moral support for him. It's obvious that, despite his actions against him, the brain really does care for Pinky as a friend, and vice versa. They need each other, in a way, and that makes it even more enjoyable, as in Pinky isn't just sticking around for no reason. They both complement each other, and I can't imagine one without the other. I like Pinky too, since it shows that outward depictions are not always indicative of internal intelligence. Remember, it's better to be silent and to be thought a fool than to speak and remove all doubt. I wonder if frogs can be taught to sew jeans. Okay, I'm sick of being small. Time to go back to normal size. Fuck! Alright, so on the complete flip side of what I've been banging on about for 2 straight weeks, where this series excels isn't necessarily in its comedy, but rather its characters. As I mentioned earlier, Pinky and the Brain have a very appealing dyad that balances comedy with actual moments of meaningful character development. Nothing too outrageous or dramatic, mind you, but it's definitely much stronger here than in the previous things I've reviewed in this Ani-May-Niacs month. Simply put, I just find the way Pinky and the Brain act and react off each other to be quite engaging, since both of their reactions to the jokes and situations aren't always the same every time, making it a little unpredictable and fun. But still, the comedy is a big aspect of the series, and in contrast to Ani-May-Niacs, where the humor was mostly explosive, zany slapstick and rapid-fire pop culture references, here it's mostly just subtle, downplayed satire, references, and more dialogue-based comedy, with less of an emphasis on comedic violence. Oh, don't get me wrong, the comedic violence is still there in full force, but the series itself is rather more grounded in reality than Ani-May-Niacs, so there aren't really any giant anvils or mallets smashing down on the heads of hapless douchebags or anything like that. It's just delivered more directly, and with even more of an adult edge that makes me feel like any kid watching this would have no fucking clue what more than half the jokes even mean. Especially nowadays, when kids can't even look up from their phone for 2 goddamn seconds to concentrate on anything. Basically, to condense my point into a block of petrified wood, while this series doesn't take as direct an approach to the comedy as Ani-May-Niacs does, it succeeds at being funny in its own, more subtle way, and I enjoy that method a whole lot too. Sometimes a perfectly delivered line can be so much more satisfying than a knock to the head every now and then, right? Not tempting fate this time. Now, luckily there isn't anything in this series that gives me a rage erection that lasts for over 6 hours and can only be tamed with elephant tranquilizers, but I still have to say that— So like I said a bit earlier, I have no problem with simplicity as long as it's done right. In fact, I've said it so many times now it's probably embedded into my genetic code. But here the simplicity actually works against the series as a whole. It's great if you want to watch an episode here or there, but not if you intend to binge watch it like other series. I wouldn't say this if it took a variety show-like approach to its presentation like Ani-May-Niacs, but it doesn't. Each episode is its own self-contained story, and all of them are so far removed from one another that it almost feels like every episode takes place in an alternate reality or something. Not that an overarching narrative is necessary here, and I wouldn't even have to mention it if the series itself didn't try to establish some form of continuity, but it does. It keeps changing the backstory and situations so often that it becomes boring when you realize that nothing you're watching really matters anyway. There are lots of shows like that, admittedly, but most of the time they have levity to support themselves through the tedium and repetition, but I don't know about this one. Pinky and the Brain just doesn't have the staying power that its predecessors have, so I can't say it's particularly gripping in any aspect of it. It reminds me of My Life as a Teenage Robot, in that it lacks any sort of discernible spark, or a reason to keep me coming back for more. I know a lot of people will disagree with me on that, and that they can be sated by the charm and comedy of the characters alone, but I stand on the other side of the wall here. Like I said though, this isn't necessarily something that makes me angry, it's just that I feel I could be spending my time watching better things that engage me more, either through comedy or drama. But if you happen to disagree, I totally understand why. It's just how I feel, and there ain't shit wrong with that, I say. But now it is time to say goodbye to the bad things and talk about my least favorite and favorite episode. And believe me, there's gonna be some surprises here. Okay guys, we got a doozy here. I can't even believe how much I hated it when I watched it. Like, no one is more shocked than me. I fucking despised this episode. And that episode would have to be Inherit the Wheeze. This episode is basically a PSA about cigarette smoking and about how the brain gets addicted to smoking during a study on how cigarette smoking negatively affects the body, but the test results are hidden by some asshole from an evil tobacco company. Brain then decides to use the tobacco company to take over the world by putting an additive into cigarettes that brainwashes people into accepting him as their leader, but he has a change of heart when he sees that children are smoking as a result of his influence. Well, fuck me sideways, guys. Could this PSA be any more ham-fisted and on the nose? It's so one-sided with its anti-smoking message that it's almost on Captain Planet levels of bias. Basically, what this episode says is this: if you smoke, you are not only evil, but you're stupid too. So stop smoking, retards. Only evil, shitty people smoke, so why do you do it, you fuckers? Personally, I'm neutral on smoking. I don't smoke, I would never smoke, but I do also believe in freedom of choice. As long as you're the age of allowance for smoking, then you go right ahead and do it. Nobody has a right to stop you from permanently damaging your body like that as long as it isn't illegal, which it isn't. And this episode has no right to make you feel like an asshole for having that freedom of choice. This episode can go burn itself out in the nearest ashtray if you ask me. Another really big surprise for my favorite episode in this series. Believe me, nobody is more shocked about this revelation than I am. My favorite episode in this series is the Christmas episode, A Pinky and the Brain Christmas. In this Christmas special, Brain tries to hypnotize everyone on Earth by creating a noodle noggin doll that would command everyone to obey him. Brain and Pinky then get jobs as Christmas elves and put a noodle noggin doll on every Christmas list, wanting Santa Claus to deliver one to every house on Earth. Because fuck other religions, everyone in this world celebrates Christmas.
Or else!
So yes, normally I'm not particularly fond of Christmas specials. They usually hammer in the same point every time and continue to perpetuate the cruel lie that is Santa Claus to young minds everywhere. But this one I found it really resonating with me. Why? Well, because of the ending. I mean, yeah, it's a bit sappy and hokey, but in all honesty, it perfectly encapsulates why I love Pinky and the Brain as characters. Pinky's earnest friendship with Brain and Brain's sad nature are highlighted here in a way that not only makes it a great episode overall, but also makes it a pretty nice Christmas special, all things considered. Pinky and the Brain is a great series to watch if you're just flipping through channels or something and need a fun little distraction, but it fails to be anything more than that. A distraction. It's not as fun or energetic as its predecessors, though it does have its own brand of humor that manages to topple over the lumbering hippopotamus of repetition more often than not. It's a solid outing, for what it's worth, and I definitely say it's a narf of a time. I give Pinky and the Brain So, Pinky and the Brain. Is it watchable? Well, the series itself has a dark style to it. It's a lot like the other series I reviewed in this month, where there are a lot of animation errors, but in terms of the style, I'd say it's appealing to watch. Is it enjoyable? Yeah, if you're just watching an episode here or there, I say it is, but don't try shotgunning this series like a can of Coors. It gets old really fast. Is it memorable? Well, personally I would say no, but it has managed to burrow its way into the human consciousness, and a lot of people do hold the characters in the show very close to their hearts. I can kinda understand why. Really, I can. But in all honesty, it doesn't really matter what I think, because these characters, this great comedic dyad, will live on for many years to come.
Gee, Sol, what are we gonna do next week?
Same thing we do every week, Bennett. Review cartoons. Want to stay up to date with all the latest EyeofSol news? You can follow me on Twitter as well as on Facebook at twitter.com/EyeofSol299 and facebook.com/EyeofSol. I update them every day, so if you want to check out news on the show as well as updates, just follow the links here.